and then they're on the other side of that, and then that's when they're very powerful, very empowered, and maybe this cycle can really end. And that's kind of my sense. Although I just like for them to come out and just say no, when it counts.
Well, I hope that you're right. In days gone by, not so much now in astrology, but in days gone by, the sign of Sagittarius was considered a very violent sign. The centaurs, as you may recall, were very violent, mindless beasts, with the exception of Chiron. And so Sagittarius is considered to be a warlike sign, a very warlike sign. Now, whether they're going to have a big war or not, they're already having them. There's wars everywhere. But I hope, too, that, see, the higher level of Sagittarius is the mind, not the lower mind of Gemini, the higher mind, the spiritual side of the mind, the religious side. Now, are they going to fall into religious bigotry, or are they going to climb into religious tolerance? Now, we see in America this generation that we're talking about here, they're being completely brainwashed by the media. I've never noticed in my 60 years of life fashion to have such an effect, and so quickly. It's kind of amplified by the electronic mind that we're surrounded with, the mind of the Twitter and the internet and the mobile phone. These things have a powerful effect, and it's almost instantaneous. There's always been fashion. The thing about astrology is it's about fashion, but there's always been fashion. But now the fashion seems to affect it. You can just see it sweeping over them in waves. It's just not like it used to be. And that's maybe something to do with acceleration. It might be something to do with the planetary configuration of the moment. I'd say it probably has. But I'm hoping, as you are, that the spiritual side of Sagittarius comes forward. But in general, we're on this planet as a way of finding what it is that we need. And quite often suffering is what brings that to our attention. Now, they haven't really had much suffering yet these days. So we'll see what happens to them.
It's funny that you mention that. The Pluto and Scorpio kids have had some intense suffering. They were, I don't know if you caught any of this, but, once Osama bin Laden, quote unquote, was captured and dispatched and unceremoniously dumped in the sea.
Yes, very convenient.
Very convenient. There were a number of kids who were like my son's age, or maybe a little bit older, 8, 9, 10 years old, when 9/11 happened. And a lot of times we don't understand how these events traumatize, generations and subgenerations. And for them, having Saddam Hussein being captured, and I'm not kidding you, these kids said, I can go to sleep at night now. And to me, it's really tragic, because astrology aside, I mean, I think that most of the war and terror and everything that's evolved out of 9/11 is a fiction. It's a very dark fairy tale, and they've been nursing fears and paranoia based on, for lack of a better term, a twisted illusion. But now they've been granted some kind of relief, and this is ironic because this was their event. This is what's traumatized them. And yes, to a large extent, the Pluto and Sagittarius kids were too young to understand that or catch that. So they don't have that same kind of imprinting, at least the older ones, that the Pluto and Scorpio kids do.
No, they don't. But I'm not sure about your son. But when the Americans announced that they'd captured Osama bin Laden, he was very skeptical.
Yeah. Good. That's a Pluto. That's a Pluto and Sag. You've taught him well, man. That's a Pluto and Sag trait.
That's right.
My son is more interested in catching Pokemon than Osama bin Laden right now.
Well, he's not old.
Yeah.
But the thing is, what are we going to do about this? I mean, the last Pluto in a fire sign was Pluto in Leo.
Right.
And I was growing up, when I was his age, we were all sure that the world was going to end within our generation because of the nuclear bomb.
Yeah.
Now, it didn't happen. We've been liberated from that. Although, of course, people still have nuclear bombs. But there's no big worry about that anymore. Now, there's no big worry about Osama bin Laden, or there's no big worry about this or that. Everybody's got something to worry about. They'll all find something, and they'll either come through it and turn to materialism, or they return to a spiritual growth.
Right.
Now, this world is about whether or not you are going to rise to a new level or whether you don't. Because if you don't, you'll just come back again and again and again and again. Now, whether we like that or not, I don't know. Some people do. Some people like the idea of coming back again and again. Now, I don't know how much of your audience is Christian, but Christians, of course, don't believe in reincarnation.
Right.
It was taken out of their religion in the was it the 5th century? I think it was the 5th century. They took it out of the religion. Prior to that, they were happy about it.
Right.
Like religion and so on. And indeed, St. Paul and other big writers in the Bible clearly implied there was the idea of reincarnation. But anyway, the thing is this: if you're going to go to a material, everyday, closed off environment where you've got your areas put in, you aren't going to see what happens to you. Things just come along and smack you in the face without looking at it. If you become aware, if you study astrology, if you become interested in improving your state of growth, in becoming aware, in contacting the divine spirit within you, you will move forward. Now, if the wave diverts into one that crashes into the sand and the other that kind of turns into foam, I don't really know, but we'll have to see what happens. Sagittarius is potentially able to contact the divine, more so than any other sign. So we just have to see whether it's the case indeed that in the end of 2012 the mothership will come down and take us all away. No one seems to have jumped off their roofs for the rapture in the last.
No, I mean, a couple of people got blown off the face of the earth in Joplin, but I would say
I don't think that was the rapture.
No, I don't think that was the rapture. Now we're all still here, and it'll be interesting because I do think that this next, gateway that Harold Camping has pointed out and hung his next sign on, which is that October 21st period. I actually think that that's a pretty interesting period. Carl Johan Kalaman, who I interviewed about a year and a half ago, he basically sees that is the end of the Mayan calendar. He's got his own calculations, but interestingly enough, it's also when this comet Elenin is going to be very, very close to Earth. I mean, it comes in around September 11th, actually, September 10th, and it gets closest in October. So we're going to have two interesting events in terms of synchronicity and time. Kalaman's version of the end of the Mayan calendar, which quite honestly does make some sense. I know a little bit about it, and it's the last wave spell. It ends on 13, I believe, Ahau on, I think is it October 27th, and then you've got Elenin. So who knows? Maybe Camping might get this thing right eventually, but October.
I don't think so.
I don't think he will either. But this October period, though, I do think it's an interesting time in terms of different pieces of information coalescing, and
It is interesting.
Yeah.
But don't forget that the Mayan calendar. It's all very well to say that the Mayan calendar ends, next year sometime, this year sometime.
Right.
Had to end sometime. They can't go on watching them forever, can they? I mean, how long ago did they write this kind of thing? A long time ago. It was a long time ago. Now, they've done a good job, and Carl Johan Kalaman has done a good job of presenting all this stuff to the world, along with the people that he disagrees with, whose name I now forget. But, I mean, these things seem to me to be sideshows.
Yeah.
The key thing is that you've got to be here in your life, not living for when the end of the world is going to come, or
I couldn't agree more. I could not agree more.
Something else is going to happen.
Yeah.
You have to. I don't wish to use this word lightly, but you have to be here now.
Yeah.
And if you aren't, then you're somewhere else. And when you're somewhere else, life is not happening to you. What's happening to you is misery, sorrow, hope, expectation, working until the day you drop, etc., etc.
Yeah.
And people need to concentrate on what it is that they need, not on what they want. That's one of the problems that we've got. And particularly, I think, the case in the Western world, especially in America, but also in Australia and other parts of a similar culture. We're all out to get what we want. We're not out to get what we need. We don't know the difference. And finding out what the difference is between want and need is sometimes brought very painfully to you by astrological aspects such as we've been discussing.
Yeah.
You know, big events that happen to you in your 12th house, or whatever, or you get a combination of Saturn and Jupiter together in your 6th house, and you get desperately ill and nearly die, which is what happened to me when Saturn and Jupiter was combined in my 6th house in the year 1999-2000. So these kind of things wake you up. And if they don't wake you up, you might as well be dead.
Right. Well, I think that is a great full stop to
It's up to a very interesting discussion.
Yeah. Well, I got a good feeling from you when you jumped into the fray on that little debate we had going there on Facebook, and my intuition was on the money. You've been a great guest, Rob. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Robert. Thank you very much, and I wish you and your listeners a very wonderful time ahead.
And have a great eclipse. I think you're gonna get that longboard out today.
I need to.
All right. Take good care, Rob.
Yeah. Okay. Bye.
All right. Bye-bye.